I didn't know anything, of course, of the Sunnah at first. And it all took years and took time and took exposure. Actually, I didn't know Muslims, never been to a mosque, never been to an Islamic country, and I was completely wide open, too. It was a blessing in a way because there was no prejudice in my mind. Islam and Muslims, I was just blink, blink, what's that? You know, I had no idea at all, you know, about it. This was long ago. It was about 1982 when I became a Muslim. That it was kind of before.
But that was before all the Muslims were terrorists.
Exactly. This was before, like, even the West knew anything about, mostly, in general, the West knew much about, like, for instance, one of the first things that brought Muslims in the Middle East and Islam into the Western view that I could remember was the Iranian hostage crisis.
Okay, now, you're talking about Iran. There were Muslims. They were in the United States. There were some hostages taken. I remember about that thing. Did that have an effect on your thinking?
I didn't have a negative view of Muslims. I didn't know anything about Muslims, you know. So whoever those guys were and whatever they were doing, it just was, you know, it didn't really hit me as, you know, like being Muslims or anything like that. It was a political thing.
So you were not even thinking about, okay, he's an Iranian Muslim. You're saying he's an Iranian politically oriented person. Sure,
they must have had an unjust government, so they overthrew their government, and this type of thing was going on in South America.
No relation to God, to Islam.
I wasn't thinking about, you know, really relating it to Muslims or religion. It was political to me.
So could that be some of the problems we see today?
Partly. I mean, you know, but sometimes people are trying to inflict religion into it more than it is sometimes. Sometimes things are political, and there is injustice going on in the world. And you know, sometimes people want to twist things around a little bit and say it's going on because of just their religious beliefs, not necessarily because of injustice. You know what I mean? So anyway, I was wide open to different ideas and things like that. So when I read the Quran, it struck me, and I believe in its basic, clear message of there being one creator. And specifically that, like Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad were brothers in the same faith, that the religion was one with them. And they teach, in essence, the same message of worshiping the Creator alone and following the Prophet during that time, his time. So that made perfect sense to me. That was really clear, and I was living up in the mountains, and I just tried to, you know, live a good life and be a good person. And it was many years, actually, before I actually met Muslims and started getting involved in actually knowing any other Muslims.
Question. Now, you said it was many years before you met any Muslims, so I want to ask you, were you disappointed?
In a way, yes and no. At first, you know, you meet people from other countries. They have different cultures and different languages and different mannerisms. So sometimes you just write it off as, oh, you know, they're just different in a way, you know. Maybe because of his culture and his language and his, you know, this and that. It wasn't until I developed an understanding of what is right and wrong in really Islam more that I understood some of the actions of Muslims are really wrong. You know what I mean? I was so ignorant, in other words, at first, that I couldn't tell you that he was a bad Muslim because I didn't know that much in the beginning anyway, to know that it was a difference between his culture or his religious teachings.
Well, this is fascinating. We're getting so much out of it. We're drawing close to the end of our program. What message do you have for us? What maybe you could tell us what happened that put it all together for you and brought you to where you are now, briefly.
Well, I'd like to mention one really interesting thing that kind of happened was that I used to sit up on the mountain and meditate and pray to God. And I asked him to guide me. No matter what it was, whatever corner of the earth, whatever it was, a far-off land or religion or whatever, I wanted to know the truth, and I wanted to be guided, and I prayed for that before I knew anything about the Quran or anything. And I was living in a remote area of eastern Oregon, and somehow Allah guided me, brought me a Quran, when there was no Muslims around really, and really no mosque in the area. And I read that Quran, I believed in it. We used to sit by the campfire and discuss it. And One time we had a problem in the community. We lived like a commune, a community of people living. And somebody had come to our camp, our little place, and had caused some trouble, drank some alcohol, got really, outrageous behavior, caused some trouble with somebody's girlfriend, and there was a big old scene, and boy, there was almost a big violent fight. And we said, hey, we really got to find a way of solving these problems. And let's make this book and what it says our guide. Because I was believing in the Quran. And I said, let's make this, a few of us said, let's make this Quran the rule for our land. What it says is allowed, we allow. What it says is forbidden, we'll forbid. How about we do that? And when I think back of it, it makes my hair bristle almost. Because we were trying to establish the Islamic law, the Sharia, without hardly knowing anything. At the time.
I wish we have more time. Maybe perhaps another time you'll be on our program with again. If you want to be guided, and this is what happened to me, the same thing, just say those words, oh God, guide me.